Bună ziua tuturor. Hello everyone. We will have this discussion in English for today's session. We are on Black Rhino Radio and we are also live on YouTube. It's a very interesting opportunity for me to spend this hour here. My name is Mihai Gurei. I'm founder of Intro, which is a showroom dedicated to contemporary design, furniture and home accessories, and I'm also curator for Romanian Design Video together with Raluca Simiuc. She's co-founder of Ototo, already a chain of stores, and I will ask you to give us a little bit of context for your presence here today, and also. Right across from a couple of thousand kilometers is Mr. Pascal Dulex. He has a very interesting, let's say, opportunity in a company, and we will probably discuss a lot about this because he works for a company which is called Freitag. Most of you are probably familiar with this very, let's say, unique company in the context of, let's say, apparel and fashion. And I will ask him to give us more information about this. He's act as a cultural coach, which is something that I really like to explore a little bit deeper, and maybe he will inspire us to act in the same manner in our own companies. But I just want to say hello to you both. Thank you very much for being today with us on Black Rhino Radio. Let's start a little bit with the connection between Ototo and Freitag. Can you give us a bit of context, please, Raluca?
Okay, sure. So I think what's important here is to know that Freitag has been operating since 93, so it's 30 years old. Romanian Design Week is 10 years old. These are kind of heavy experience design companies. Ototo is a bit more than 1 year old.
Recording in progress.
And I think that's a key to this. What we or the reason why we exist, Ototo, is to give another platform to beautiful independent brands, we are saying. And this is a bit how we personally have spent the last 10 years living, trying to step by step go towards a more sustainable lifestyle, living our life day to day, looking for brands like Freitag and many others that are not just amazing in terms of design and statement, but also knowing that they are good for the people, for the community, and for the planet. And when we started Ototo, we really admire. We started from admiring these brands, and Freitag, I think, is the best example. And we thought, what does it take for more people to actually be exposed to them and make different daily choices towards these brands and these products that are much more circular, responsible, sustainable. And access to market was one. So I come from a background where we had our own small company, family business, doing good things and brands with impact, but we were very often hitting ceilings in terms of access to market, retail, gastronomy, and so on. So from that perspective, putting the two together, our lifestyle and our experience with small brands, what we said is we want to create rather a context than a store, a context where people can actually access the products and the brands of these beautiful independent brands, but also take the time, context where they can take the time to hear the story, to learn more about them, because this change of mindset and different choices, daily choices, will not be made otherwise. So Ototo, yes, it is a store, but it is also a context for people to take the time and discover, explore different type of brands on all categories. In kind of daily, weekly choices, so casual categories, and it it is also an invitation for people and an inspiration for people to maybe do steps towards a more sustainable lifestyle. So
sounds cool. And I would say that Ototo creates a space for a community to be formed, because this relates very well with the theme of this pop-up radio. And I'm already part of Ototo community. I can be seen often enjoying my coffee or my hot chocolate in Ototo everywhere, in all the Ototos. So this is for me already more than just convenience. It's about spending time discovering products, meeting people. So from this point of view, I think this model of business, this model of retail, it's vital for a big city like Bucharest that lacks this type of spirit, unfortunately. And hopefully you will inspire more and more business to go in the same direction, to create micro communities around the philosophy and the concept of the store, and this way inspire them to live better lives. And now I would like Pascal to jump in the conversation. I got a little bit of time to read a little bit about Freitag. Of course, I know the brand for many years, and I always was inspired by the way you decided to enter this field of, and it was in many ways you were a pioneer of upcycling, of circular economy. Back when nobody knew what is that, and throwing objects, throwing everything was common. Now we live in a society where garbage became a very big issue everywhere, and it's getting more and more difficult to throw your garbage because nobody wants your garbage. And I had a very interesting discussion about this last year during 3 days of design in Copenhagen, where there was a debate regarding fabrics, materials, and I intervened in the discussion, and I told them about us, Romania, as a country where many Western countries are dumping their trash. And this is becoming more and more really a problem for us. And I'm really glad to see and to put a little bit a highlight on companies as yours. So please give us a little bit of context about what is Freitag about, and maybe how did you end up working with this incredible company?
Well, hello everyone, and thanks for having me. Yeah, Freitag, taking up the issue of garbage, probably the interesting point is that Freitag made a living out of reusing garbage. So I guess that's today probably a more common point, that clearly in the early 90s when Freitag was founded, that was something highly unusual. Even the concept of recycling wasn't too popular. So I like to talk about Freitag, or to look at Freitag as an idea that slowly over the years developed into a company, and probably managed to establish a mindset that, you know, that would outline the relevant aspects of the product that was created in the first place. So if you look at Freitag from today's perspective, as you said, we're almost 30 years old, which can be a debatable topic because it says you've been around for quite a while. I don't know how cool it is to be 30, but certainly those 30 years gave us a lot of time to reflect on what really matters, and also how you can approach things very differently from the traditional point of view. Because that's probably, apart from reusing garbage and turning it into a product that you can sell, another highly unusual aspect, I would say, is that Freitag was created by Daniel and Markus Freitag, two brothers, and they are both creatives. One is more a 3D visual designer, the other is graphic designer. And I think that allowed us, the company and the 250 people that work there today, allowed us to approach things in a quite different way. And because they didn't literally have any clue of how to approach business in the first place, they just questioned everything and just thought about a lot of things in a very probably naive, but also refreshing and interesting way, which led to a lot of unusual processes, and I think a lot of aspects that attract today a lot of people, because some of those features just became, I guess, part of what you call new work, or the new approach to work, at least in the Western countries.
It's very interesting, and I was reading about the history of the company, the fact that these two brothers, they just jumped in a business. They started to do something, and sometimes this approach seems counterintuitive in an era where everybody's trying to make a business plan, is trying to iterate, is trying to get some seed money and so on. Do you think it's still a way of starting a business nowadays, or it was just an opportunity back in the 90s to do something like that?
I absolutely believe that it's still a valid point of entry into making business. When they started, just talking about what they actually did in the early 90s, you'd have just backpacks, no crossbody bag, messenger bags that we are very used to today. And so as they were cycling back and forth through Zurich during their graphic design studies, they were just looking for a bag that would suit their needs and would be water resistant, would be adaptable to certain sizes of their stuff that they would carry around. And they just realized that some of those, there was in the United States, probably West Coast and East Coast, there were messengers carrying these huge bags, and they just decided to try making a bag for themselves out of then used material. So this became truck tarpaulin. And so, but coming back to the question, how to approach business, they just started by producing or just making a product for themselves, and this should be as good as possible, as durable as possible, regarding the material, as robust, as stable as possible. And I think that's probably to this day a very, very true and authentic way of approaching product design, because you won't think about sales and all that stuff. You just will think about the quality and the design of the product. And 30 years later, our core business is still more or less the same. That just tells you how fit or how robust this product was, and how probably also timeless in terms of the whole approach that they chose. So only after, they actually never had a business plan, in the back business. So only after months and like the growth that a lot of people want to have, I think is in sharp contrast usually to a lot of things that you should consider when coming up with a contemporary product design. Because usually if you grow very fast and make a lot of money, probably a lot of the expenses that you will have are kind of outsourced to other areas. And that's what we're experiencing now. For me, that's also what you were referring to regarding garbage.
Yeah, very interesting point. And let's say I'm glad to be in the same family of businesses, because also Intro, our company, it's still a founder's company. We're a small company. We didn't grow exponentially. We didn't get investors to open more stores. We have just one store, and the business is going well. We live from it. So it's a good business for us as investors. And Ototo has the same philosophy. It's also a founder's company. How do you go from starting your business with a couple of friends to managing a team of 200 people? I know that you started to do things a little bit different than most of companies, and maybe you can give us a little bit of insight on this part.
Yeah, I think at the core, I mean, I've joined the company 2010, so that's a good 12 years ago. So I came to Freitag when we were around 70 people. And at that time, and I think it doesn't really matter at what time you joined the company, but what you can feel usually is that certain aspects are very present, and those aspects I would in total look at them as the three pillars of sustainability. Not only the ecological or the economical aspect, but also the social aspect. And really now looking back to the beginning of Freitag, I think probably by coincidence or by mindset of Daniel and Markus Freitag, who founded the company, what you would call business model today is just at the intersection of these three pillars of sustainability. So all the three have been a vital part of Freitag and shaped Freitag's culture over the years. So if you take those three pillars, that means that you can look at every single one of them, but in total, that Daniel and Markus always try to balance those three pillars out. So, I was talking about profit before. So whenever they made profit in all those years, they would reinvest this profit into what would make sense in their eyes to make the company more interesting or make work more interesting, because after all, they spent a lot of time in this company. And that's, I guess, probably a very big difference between somebody just being hired and working somewhere and those two guys actually being the owners of the company and working there. And they were just able to make a lot of things happen that otherwise probably would be discussed differently, because usually it's not creatives hiring managers. Usually it's the other way around, probably managers or owners hiring creatives. And that's, I guess, a big difference. So, this is something, but clearly the last couple of years we were also heavily in the news because that was 2015, we abandoned the traditional way of I was one of the drivers actually of that change, of being one of the drivers ever since we decided to change that, and now we are, as we call it, on a bumpy or rocky road towards self-organization, which essentially just means that we are trying to keep the hierarchy quite leveled out, but there's a lot of hierarchy in the company, but it should never come out of just people, but always of expertise. So what we try to achieve with that is to kind of maintain or probably bring back some of the spirit of the early days when you talk about startups, or for me, this is a lot of times associated with a bunch of people being united by a common goal, and you just do whatever is necessary to go there. And everyone behaves quite entrepreneurial, and so that's what we try to bring back. And currently, I don't know whether you're familiar with that, but we are running Holacracy as an organizational model.
I should confess that I heard about this. I didn't have the opportunity to study more about this, and I'm quite interested because I'm also trying to promote a sort of very leveled hierarchy in our small company, and sometimes this is a little bit confusing for my colleagues, because they would like to know what is the chain of responsibility for different situations, and I would like to promote this type of entrepreneurial spirit. Can you give us a little bit more details about your role? Because it's said culture coach, which sounds lovely, but in the context of a business, it sounds a little bit strange. You would associate this type of position maybe in a cultural institute or something like this, but you cannot see that too often in a business that the purpose of that business would be to make profit. How do you define your role in the company?
Well, I have to start by saying this is one of my roles. It's not the only one. I joined the company. I have a communication background, so I was responsible for marketing in the first place. Then it was called brand management. Then that was still in the old days. I was head of innovation, so the whole product development. And then we decided that we would leave this traditional system. And I realized that designing an organization is probably even more interesting to me than just designing a product. And so how do you design an organization? One is obviously really think about the whole organizational chart, who does what, and how do you distribute authority, how do you design processes. And the other thing is how should work actually feel? So what do you want? What culture do you want? Because a culture is always something linked to a certain group of people. There's no way you can describe a culture without context, right? So when whoever, whatever bunch of people tries to do something together, they will have some sort of culture. And if someone joins them, this person will also bring in certain aspects and contribute to the culture. If someone leaves, this will have an impact. And so as a culture coach, my task or my job is actually to, I think, create a framework where everyone feels safe to contribute to the culture, but also, especially lately, to discuss what kind of values are important to us as a company. What kind of cultural values do we cherish, and how do we make sure that if someone actually misbehaves, I mean, that sounds harsh, but someone is bringing in stuff that we don't want, how do we react to that? Because if you don't react to it, then this just becomes part of your culture. And actually, it's funny because it's just lying in front of me, but one of the artifacts that came out of this is actually like this booklet. It's the culture code, and it's actually a handwritten booklet, which just should show that this is a work in progress. So this is the first version of this code, and it's just kicking off a discussion within our company, within our community of 250 people, because I don't believe, or I think no one at Freitag believes in just writing words on the wall and thinking that they matter. It's really about starting a dialogue and trying to figure out what you actually understand when you say we want to meet us at eye level or stuff like that. So this is roughly what is meant by the role culture coach. There are certain aspects to that that probably go more into company values. We have a manifesto and stuff. We can dive into that too later if you want to.
Obviously, because this is probably the most intriguing aspect of, let's say, your presentation on your website. When you look at, usually when you look on a website of a company, of a brand, they say some bits about their history, how someone started in a small atelier making something from leather, and then now, boom, it's a huge company with 1,000 stores across the world. But it's your About Us section. It's quite rich, and it's quite intriguing, because you find more about how do you behave when you start to act as an entrepreneur, And how do you evolve when you become a sort of a leader of a community, which is nowadays it's even more clearer than before the pandemic, that our team, in fact, we are responsible for the way our colleagues and our employees are living their lives. And we are not just 9 to 5 for them, we are part of their life, and also their colleagues are part of their life, and most of the times they become our friends, and our philosophies of life start to be influencing by each other. And how do you see your role as a cultural coach and company in the way the lives of people are shaping, especially after?
Was quite a challenge. But the other thing is, how do you actually make sense of everything? And I guess that's probably the other side of those values, not necessarily the interpersonal thing, but the answer to the question, what could be our role in addressing all the challenges that we're facing globally? And I mean, on one hand, you can say, well, we are a back company, right? So it's probably not the right product to save the world. But on the other hand, I think what can make a difference is just how to approach things and how to, reflect on how you do things. And in our case, what was that? Probably 6 years ago, we wrote a manifesto, which is essentially addressing consumerism, because there's this weird duality that we know that we need to sell products in order to stay. But on the other hand, there's a lot of stuff going on, mass consumerism, that we condemn and we don't want to be part of, like Black Friday or just outsourcing all the bad things, making profit by disrespecting people and everything. So I think that's probably another aspect that we can offer. We wrote a manifesto which essentially is probably a guideline how to produce stuff if you're a producer, but also how to consume if you're, we all are both, right? How to design as a designer, but also how to consume as a consumer. And I think essentially it's also what I hear from you guys when you talk about all these beautiful stuff that you're doing at Otto, and it's about bringing back a conscious way of consuming things, because after all, it's a really nice. It makes you feel nice. It's kind of probably a way of connecting with like-minded people, and it can be a lot of fun. But there has to be some kind of framework that addresses how you actually do it.
Maybe if I can just
yes, of course, please.
I just thought it's very interesting and very linked to the exhibition that we have here for the Romanian Design Week, because what we are saying, zooming sustainable design, it's actually kind of scratching the surface and going and seeing design beyond design as a product or as an object. And I think it's very interesting what Freitag does for 30 years, and especially in the last years, with the need to kind of, or the time to reflect, is that design is seen as a process. So that's very interesting. How you do things is just as much rich in design as one object that we see. Design is in the organization, in the culture, in all this, how you communicate and so on. But what is also very interesting with Freitag is design as a process is not just what materials and how you produce them and every single step, but it's also seeing the full life of a product. And I think this idea of circularity, durability, it's very well represented, and maybe Pascal can talk a bit more about this. So how do you design a product? How do you design the company so that it has the smallest impact, but it also lasts longer, and you consider what happens after somebody buys it? And it's not like, okay, your responsibility as a manufacturer or as a producer or as a brand finishes there with selling and
in fact, this is one of my of the points of my. I have a radio show in Romania, which is called Live Design, and my purpose with this show was to reflect and present to my listeners a way of approaching living well, and by living well meaning designing your the aspects of your life, and designing the aspects of life meaning taking control of your own life. And sometimes we live because we just perceive the fact that we don't have enough time to optimize the way we are living, but we are missing a lot. And one of the key aspects of living well is using the proper tools, using the proper objects for your own life, investing in durable objects that you can have a good relation with the object. And this way, you can manage to keep it as long as possible. And if it's a quality object, you just keep it for your own life, and eventually, hopefully, you can even pass it on to another one who can, with a little bit of maintenance, can even use it for his own life. And the fact that we are living in this era of commodizing everything, it's a huge burden for all of us. And maybe you can explain us a little bit how do you hope the market will evolve? Do you think it's important also for the governments to interfere in this, moving a little bit faster toward a more circular economy, or we need to have customers more aware about this? What is your opinion?
I think it's on a lot of levels that we can move forward. Of course, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on governmental level. So there will be new laws and regulations that make certain things impossible. Besides that, I think you can fast track that either when you have your own company and think about the way that you do business. And also, especially as a consumer, you have a lot of power. And I think we're starting to feel that there's a lot of brands doing really cool stuff and a lot of consumers really asking for exactly this stuff. And it's touching on a lot of levels. As Raluca said, I mean, I think from you can always have these two perspectives. From a designer's perspective, if you design a product, obviously circularity is the thing, I guess, in regards to how to deal with materials and stuff. So that's probably the most basic point. But then it's also, if it's something circular, that doesn't really mean there's a lot of other aspects coming in, like durability. It should be a long-living product, because I really like what you said. Ideally, you kind of have a relation to this object, right? It's becoming yours. In terms of our bags, there's people, because they're robust, probably they live for 10 years, and then they have certain corners or probably certain I don't know, there's probably stuff coming off, so but you still want it because you have a relationship, so there needs to be a decent way of repairing it. And so we call them bag nurses, actually. So you can repair your stuff, and you have another probably 5 years or 10 years to with it. And then once the life cycle of a product is finished, I think what you need to do today is really think about the afterlife. What happens? Is it circular, and you can just if it's organic, throw it on a compost, and it's degradable? Or if it's the technical cycle, how do you make sure you can get out the materials again? Because that's, again, a precondition for the designers to think about the afterlife means to design a product exactly so you can actually easily take it apart and bring the different materials into the different cycles that where they need to go. So there's a lot of stuff like that, and I think if you, from a designer's perspective, solve them well, that's really attractive for me as a consumer. I want to own exactly these products where I know that there's a lot of soul in them, and people thought about the whole life cycle, not just about selling them as fast and as many as possible.
I think we all buy into stories in the end, and we make statements with whatever, especially with what we wear, but yeah, what we consume in general. And the story was for very long, because of the companies, fast fashion, the story was very much about what you see. Yeah, it's designers per se, but I think the story becomes gradually a bit different because of especially the new generation and bringing different conversation. So there are these amazing brands like Freitag, and there are many others that we also have at Ototo, which might not be as thorough or just not as long-standing as Freitag, but equally beautiful. The thing is that in order to hear the story, we are all small brands, we don't do advertising, so it's more difficult to get our story through. But if people would hear the story like we do now, or you do when you come to Ototo, they would probably feel attracted and want to wear that story. So for that, there are a couple of things that should happen. One is transparency. So this story should be seen. And I think that's also something that Freitag does really well, or Mud Jeans, or Amdejas, or any of the other brands. So, because the other brands, they can't be transparent, yeah? So these brands can be transparent, and there is this beauty in transparency, yeah? So new generation especially, they are looking for authenticity, they are looking for transparency, and that is something beautiful, yeah? So then you see it, and then you see, okay, that I see nothing but the product. They don't tell me anything else. Here I see actually the distribution of the cost. I can see all the steps in the process. I can see the impact of every step or every material and so on. But then, who has the time for that? Or how do we get from there to the people, to the community? And I think that's a very interesting conversation, because we are trying to do that, but we are very humble. We just started, we are very small, but we try to give the time and give the platform not just as a store, as a marketplace, but also as a place where you can tell and hear that story and see through, so that you can believe and feel attractive to it. What is also very important for us as Ototo, and here again Freitag is the best example, is that the design of the object should still be best. So you still should feel like, okay, I desire that object. Because I think for many years, sustainability was a bit at the other end of design as attractive design. But now there are so many brands that have both, and you don't have to compromise in terms of, I love design and I love the aesthetic of a product or of object, and I'm also a conscious consumer or sustainable. I want to go for a sustainable lifestyle. And I think here is Freitag is at its best, because first, when I loved Freitag as a person who saw it, was for the aesthetics of it, for the functionality, that I felt, okay, that's just mine. This is my lifestyle, yeah? I want to throw the bag away, and I want to know that it will become just better. Every day I'm throwing it on the floor, not throwing it away, but, putting it on the floor or wearing it every day. So I think, that's very interesting into, yes, we need to see through, to be able to hear those beautiful stories of design in the process, the impact, these brands that have something to say. And then again, you mentioned, I think, taking the time. I think Pascal mentioned you need time, because everybody, you were talking about investment and companies wanting to move fast, and Pascal was also mentioning this, that you really have to reflect, take the time, and I think that's also something which is relating to the theme of the exhibition, which was also inspired by Freitag, this idea of slow down to gain time. So actually, in order to hear any of this conversation that we are having here, you need to slow down as a company, you need to slow down as a community.
Yeah, thank you very much for this, let's say, a little bit more insights on Ototo's philosophy, because I think for most consumers, the mindset it's already there. So for example, I will give my example and my partner's example. We do our best to consume as little as possible. We usually invest in a couple of items, clothing items per year, and we try to wear them as much as possible. We do our best to recycle things, and I'm quite angry when I forced to throw something and I would like to do something composted or just recycle it. Obviously, there are steps to be made in many areas regarding the use of plastics, for example. But even when you come back to sustainable brands, if I, as a consumer, I just buy a nice cotton T-shirt, organic cotton T-shirt, but I'm gonna wear it for 1 month and then I'm gonna throw it away, thinking that I was quite conscious when I bought the T-shirt, but the fact that I'm throwing it after 1 month doesn't seem for me so conscious. I buy most of my items. I don't buy from sustainable brands because still this field is quite small. Obviously, I buy Patagonia, a couple of brands like this, but I do my best to wear my item as much as possible. And sometimes the conversation it's going a little bit too fast toward just buying. But from my point of view, it's also a question of how much do you intend to use a product. It's becoming unfortunately too easy to buy. So it's so convenient just to push a button on a website and then you don't even like the product that will arrive in your package. So how do you encourage your customers to be more thoughtful about what they buy?
Well, that's how do we do that? I think coming back to what Raluca said, I mean, in the first place, I think that's true for every product. You have to be attractive, because no matter what you do and what your product contains and how thoughtful it is designed or produced, if it's not attractive, there won't be a second chance that people want to know what's behind that attractive look. So I would say that's part of the answer, probably. I mean, you have to be attractive in order to, attract people.
To get their attention. Yes.
And then we always refer to this, this logic of the golden circle. I think it was by Simon Sinek, that you start with why you're doing it, and you talk about how you do it. And you don't necessarily need to talk about what, because if the what's attractive in the first place, then just people want to know what's behind that facade, which looks nice. And so we spend a lot of time talking about the process, which we call from truck to bag. So the transformation from this truck tarp, which is on this heavy vehicle and that's been on the road for, 10 years or so. And now it's turned into something new. And then I so dig what you said, Raluca, because there's the whole process. You can talk about that. If you produce a product like that, you don't need to come up with artificial stories, because literally the whole process is authentic and honest. You don't have to hide anything. So you find all these small stories that you can tell them, those people who are attracted. So the whole transformation, I mean, if you look at the factory that we have here in Zurich, it's 7,500 square meters. There's a lot of jobs that you won't find anywhere else. People handling this huge tarp. I mean, buying them in the first place, bringing them to Zurich, then people working with knives and, you know, on the heavy stuff, then washing those. And so how do we, again, coming back to your question, how do we want to address this with our consumers? I think it's just showing them that a product which is produced in a sustainable way is probably just so much more interesting, because it offers a variety of really cool stuff that you won't have if you just buy your ordinary sneakers that are produced somewhere far away, and you don't really want to know about the conditions under which the workers had to produce them. So there's just such a lot of stuff that you can potentially relate to. It's just way more fun. And I think our job is probably to address this, because it has to be fun after all. If you just, go like, be conscious, don't consume the bad stuff. This is
preaching is not attractive. But I just wanted to add one thing, which I noticed especially now at the exhibition. What people get really excited about is the fact that there is an exchange. So actually, being kind of lifelong, so durability is interesting. But then the fact that there is an exchange where you can actually go with your own Freitag, if you it goes out of your personal style, or you're a bit bored with the color and so on. It doesn't mean you have to buy another one, but you can go on this exchange and actually swap your Freitag bag. And I think that's one of the example of how you actually discourage people to buy an extra one, because they know, I can actually play around and still have something new, but not consume extra.
We call it, just to add, we call it the bag Tinder. I mean, it's called Swap, but it's working like Tinder. So you just
I think that's what makes it attractive,
And
people were excited.
It's counterintuitive if you think about profit, just to allow people to swap their products. So that means less profit for you. It's getting complicated to just maintain a business going forward, but it makes a lot of sense to try to do it. And another good example, because I'm looking at it now, I just came for a couple of kilometers. Is the best way to travel in Bucharest with a Brompton bike. And Brompton has this amazing culture around their product. There are clubs everywhere. When you meet another guy or another girl with a Brompton on the street, you tend to stop and smile to that person. It's just like sharing a common language. And in my opinion, this is a way of doing business. When someone buy into your value proposition, it should be in a way of onboarding in a sort of community. And we go back all the time to communities, and business, they supposed, in my opinion, to become communities for people, because we need so much human connections, and sometimes it's difficult to find them in our regular life. And through businesses, through this type of consuming, we can reach different type of communities where we can get shared values, and we discover people through the objects we own. If you want to add something, because we are approaching basically the end of the hour, I didn't imagine it will go so quickly, but I'm glad it did. We can go for 1 hour more without problem, that's for sure. Pascal, if you want to add something, maybe I missed something that it's important for you to share with people watching and listening to us.
Well, I just pick up what you said just now. Buying into a community. I think that's ideally what happens if you buy any kind of product. And I guess in the Freitag world, it's me coming from Zurich, the Freitag capital of the world. It's always because every single product looks different because it's coming from a different truck. But it's always interesting to look at others. Literally here in Zurich, it's around every corner, and to think about. I like to believe, and probably it's true in a lot of ways, in a lot of cases, that it's some sort of connected mindset. It's they believe probably in at least partially in the same things I believe, which makes them interesting for me. So I like that thought of the community, that this is it's not just target groups and social demographic characteristic. It's literally it's people with hearts and souls and beliefs, and that's much more attractive to me.
Well, anyhow, all this type of splitting the customer base in different section, it's quite ridiculous, because, for example, you're gonna see people using a Freitag bag or riding a Brompton bike from all type of ages and backgrounds, and it's literally impossible to pinpoint a specific target that you can address through advertising and so on. And these were just some artifacts invented by the advertising industry to let's say persuade their customers to invest in specific targets and channels. But the way your value proposition will evolve on a specific market and a specific community, it's almost impossible to predict. And this is from my point of view, is the joy of entrepreneurship. Even though you make your own plans for 5 years, 10 years, the reality will surprise you, and you need to be open-minded and react accordingly with what the customers want, what the market it's going through. Even you can see there are so many historical events happening all the time. So if you stay open to certain values, and this is something that you mentioned, I think it's extremely crucial, and sometimes companies are forgetting about those values, the founding values of a company. You pretty much can do everything, even though you're gonna switch a little bit of the value proposition. Maybe you're gonna sell some different stuff, or maybe, as in your case, we'll introduce a new fabric. You still are there on your own values, and maybe you can give us a little bit, because I forgot to ask you about the new fabric coming, and how did you approach this, and how did you end up with this new fabric?
Well, I mean, the search for new fabrics has been an ongoing quest the last decade or so. We did clothing, fully circular, organic clothing. I'm wearing a t-shirt, by the way, right now. Now we're looking more into also alternative fabrics for bags. We are currently having the first trucks on the road, because we try to reinvent actually the fabric, the truck tarp that they use. Because so far it's PVC, polyester PVC, and we try to come up with new fully circular ingredients, which potentially could revolutionize the whole transport industry. But besides that, we are experimenting with a lot of stuff. We recently did bags out of airbags, airbags that wouldn't meet the qualifications to be used for cars. And then we are working on other stuff fully circular materials for bags. But I cannot give away too much there at the moment, because a lot of those products are literally just in, how you say that, still in trial and error state.
More at the next edition of Romanian Design Week, yes. Next year.
You need to come.
Yeah.
You need to come down here, so we can
I want to
have a chat in a person, and maybe also open to questions from the audience. Raluca, if you want to mention something, maybe I missed something about the way you approach the relationship with Freitag. What are your plans? Do you want to do some more with this lovely company?
We are very humbled by this relationship, as I said, and I see the partnership very important to actually develop the appetite, let's say, of the Romanian communities for this type of desirable and sustainable brands, because, as I said, there are many other smaller, younger, beautiful, equally beautiful brands, but they don't have that much content. They don't have that thoroughness and attention to all the details and so on, because they didn't have that much time to reflect back. So I see this partnership as one beneficial directly, but also beneficial for any other brand from Europe or from Romania that is just starting or has started recently to build something similar. And we were discussing this with Pascal also on Friday, that this business we are in, or this area we are in, is very collaborative. Yeah, as you mentioned, the keywords are community, communities, values, and one of the key values here is collaboration. So we would not mind that there is another brand coming up, because we are on our way, we have our values, we have our personality, just as well as you would not mind if you find a person that is talking about the same thing that you are talking about.
We need more people involved in the field of design, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of it, that we are inviting other brands, we are inviting other people, we are inviting other platforms or stores that are going to open to support this. So I think that's for me a key message. A key message here. It is really about this set of shared values and hoping for a lifestyle that is more conscious and more sustainable. And just bring it back to the exhibitions that we have for the Romanian Design Week this year. We are inviting, so we open with this slow forward, so really taking this time to pay attention, actually slowing down to gain time. And we open it as a manifesto, and it's an open call to everybody, creative entrepreneurs, creatives of all sorts, or any community that wants to join us in this effort.
So guys, don't hesitate to come to Ototo stand in Romanian Design Week exhibition and approach them, and they are very, very, very friendly people. Yes, so you can find them everywhere in the stores. They are. I don't understand how are you everywhere in all the stores all the time, but it's amazing. Pascal, thank you very much. It was lovely to meet you and have a chat with you. Hopefully, we will have another one soon. Good luck with your mission. I'm looking forward to find out more about your, let's say, new way of approaching product design, new products, new fabrics. I'm convinced that a company, a sustainable company, needs to think very, very carefully about launching new products, and sometimes you see that as a very fast. It was lovely to have also Raluca with me. As you can see, it was a lovely conversation. It was that difficult to do it together. And thank you very much for people listening and watching us on Black Rhino Radio. If you didn't have time to come to Combinatul Fondului Plastic, do it, because the weather is quite nice, and the exhibitions, they worth a little bit of a trip here. Thank you very much. See you soon.